Ciao YouTube, I'm with Chris Buck. Is something that I was actually looking forward, because once I saw that there was the possibility to meet you up here and play music, I asked Yamai if it was possible actually to meet you up. Just to give you a bit of background, my channel is called The Sound in My Head, and revolves on the specific, let's say, need and want that we have once we have like a tone, or we are searching for something that is in our head, and let's say we try to express it towards pedal guitars,
absolutely,
and so on. So this is, I think, something that is common to every guitarist at every level. And what we would like to do is, let's say, to discover how you approach tone, especially when you are in a situation like this, in which you don't have your amps, you don't have your pedal boards. How do you do when you don't have everything that you usually use?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in itself is a skill, to be able to sound like yourself when you're confronted with gear that's not necessarily your own, or gear that you're unfamiliar with, or gear that you have to adapt to in a certain situation. That in itself, being able to do that, is, in my humble opinion, the mark of a somewhat competent musician who can be able to get the best out of things irrespective of the situation. I mean, it just so happens I very much like the Helix. This is the Helix Stadium through a power cab. For these types of scenarios, that's honestly my ideal setup. You know, I'm actually on tour at the moment with the band. I've left the band in Roccada last night and came to Milan on my own today. Obviously without my pedal board, without my amps, without my cables, literally just brought my guitar. And it's been able to adapt to those situations. And the kind of the practical application of that for me is having my presets, dropping my presets onto the Helix, setting the cab up in the way which I normally set it up, and away you go. And it all sounds very familiar. It all feels like home. Something I actually did when I was setting up these Helix presets, which I've never done in the past for some reason, is actually A-B it with my setup. So I had my pedal board with my amp, and then I had a Helix with a power cab, switching back and forth between the two, trying to match them and make sure the tone was as close as possible. Because then when you arrive in a situation like this and you're given 10 minutes to sound check and get set up, you're not endlessly fiddling with settings and trying to dial things in.
It has to be ready to go.
Absolutely. And again, even if, you know, things are less than ideal, or you're in a situation where maybe you can't hear yourself quite as well as you would like to, or the monitoring situation is less than ideal, whatever it happens to be, it's just the realities of touring. You have to be able to adapt to that and overcome it, and be confident in your abilities, that even if you can't maybe hear yourself quite as well as you would like to, you just have to find a way to get through it and make it work. You know,
part of the job.
Absolutely. It's otherwise it's a great job. There's not many downsides to it, and just being able to adapt and overcome situations like that is one of the few kind of more, not even negative, but just realistic elements of it, I guess, that people with proper jobs experience every day of their lives. So I'm not going to complain.
Right. So the chain you are running to is, of course, your new signature guitar.
Absolutely. It says it on the back of the headstock, so I know it's mine. Directly into the Helix.
And how do you, let's say, you are using more pedal, you have like a gain stacking situation, amps, cabs, what are you usually going to look for?
I feel like me using a Line 6 Helix is kind of having like Leonardo da Vinci come round to paint your living room. I set it up in such a basic way relative to what it is absolutely capable of. It's pretty much set up to be a digital recreation of my rig. So I have a clean Fender style amp. In this case, it's a deluxe reverb recreation with just different pedals in front of it. You know, whether that's overdrive, so like my clean tone, for example. That's the first overdrive being kicked in there. It's super subtle.
Just give a bit more.
Just fattens it up very slightly.
Do you use an always on usually, or you use the clean amp?
In this setup, no. In my actual setup with my pedal boards, I have an EP booster, which is at the end of the chain, which adds a little bit of low end, a little bit of thump I guess, and a little kind of bit of sparkly highs.
Yeah,
Just it seems to make every amp that you put it into sound a little bit better. So that's a great always-on pedal, the EP Booster from Exotic Effects. So that first pedal was on here. It's labeled Breaker because it's doing the job of a Marshall Blues Breaker, which is in my normal rig, I should say. On here, it's actually the Teamer, I think it is, which is the Timmy kind of recreation. Yeah. Next up, we've got a Klon, which is a little bit more kind of mid-focused, I guess. It's got that Klon-esque mid-range, that kind of slight honk. That combined with the Teamer, you kind of get like... Still kind
medium
of...
to low again.
Yeah, you could get away with, you know... We're going to get a copy strike if I play the next chord. But then the next pedal, which is kind of the main overdrive, is labeled KOT. That's the King of Tone, which is one of my main overdrive pedals on my main board.
Both sides or just
both
one?
sides.
Okay.
And that's kind of...
Still very dynamic.
Yeah, dynamic, and it backs off and it cleans up nicely. You stack a couple of those overdrive pedals together and you start to get a bit more of a kind of lead tone. That's pretty much it in terms of drive. The one I didn't touch on then was the fuzz, which is I think it's the facial fuzz actually, which is one of the legacy models in the Helix. It's one of the very first fuzz pedals that they put in there.
You find broke?
Yeah, exactly. I love it. It's great. Stacks really nicely with something like a Klon. That's the fundamental sound of something like the Tell Me How It Feels solo from Cardinal Black's. That's that kind of sound.
It's really, really close to the actual record. Yeah,
absolutely.
This is not bad at all. One of the things that actually drew me to your channel in the first place was your use of the harmonic tremolo. Because I didn't know it first. Yeah. And it was like, oh, wow, I need to have one of those.
I'm absolutely guilty of overusing it because it is one of those effects that when you find it, it's impossible to not want to put it on absolutely everything. So it's just gorgeous. It's, you know, one of those kind of... It's just such a pretty effect.
You can play for hours.
Absolutely,
like
just get totally lost.
Do you usually use this as a wet-dry situation, or you always have all wet?
All wet. Okay. I've experimented with wet-dry in the past. I guess the somewhat fundamental flaw with wet-dry is not only being reliant on your own sound engineer out front to know exactly what you're trying. Yeah, exactly. How wet you want it to be. And you know, you are reliant on not only having your own front of house engineer that night, but also a PA system which is reacting in the way that you would want it to react. And you know, our front of house engineer likes to pan my amps out front, so we have one amp going one side, another going the other, so it gives a little bit of kind of stereo width. If you're trying to do that with a wet-dry setup, it just gets a little bit confusing. So everything goes into the front. It's all running in, I was going to say dual mono, but it's probably quadruple mono because I'm running 4 amps at the moment, which is totally excessive, but a lot of fun. So it's all straight in the front of the amp. So even stuff like the kind of, you know, the crazier effects like the echo rack then, you know, which is the big kind of like delay kind of, all that kind of stuff. So if you actually hit that in isolation, something like that with the harmonic trem is just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. That's kind of a staple of a lot of my rhythm stuff is actually creating
movement.
More like, movement and like ambient kind of beds and the vocal parts, you know. So actually, there was a drive pedal I forgot to mention because it's on the top layer. That's called mid push, which is literally a tube screamer, but with the gain backed right off. So things up very slightly. We've got a slapback delay. We've got Echo Sex, as it's called, which is based on the Guru's Echo Sex.
So 3 different kind of delays.
Yeah.
One more excessive of the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I will usually do is, say the Echo Sax and the slap will both go on for something like a track like Holding My Breath, where it's kind of like a...
A really good example is something that I also love to do, to have 2 delays in a board, because many times people maybe have 1 delay, and something that I think you are missing out, because it's a lot of fun, is I think needed to play with the gear in order to also develop the music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because sometimes you have some completely new sound that you start to play with, and
it inspires the track. Absolutely. There's no end of tracks that we've written which have been inspired by just stumbling across a sound, whether that's a fuzz sound or an overdrive sound, or usually a modulation or a delay sound that, you know, sparks an idea or kind of evolves into something. So yeah, I'm a big fan of just sitting down with my pedal board and an amp and sitting there, legs crossed, and tweaking and seeing what you come up with. It's an immense amount of fun. I'm a bit of a gearhead in that respect. You know, I love experimenting with things.
I can understand. Trust me.
It's the guitarist curse, isn't it?
Anyway, Chris, it's been a pleasure
to
steal a bit of your knowledge on gear and on sound.
Prego.
So
grazie.
I will be sitting also here in the audience to listen the clinic here at Play Music Store. Thank you, Yamaha, for making this possible. And ragazzi, è stato veramente un piacere. Ci vediamo al prossimo video e spero di avere altri ospiti come Chris in futuro. Ciao a tutti.
Ciao ragazzi.